Yo, what's up? It's your boy E.T. Welcome to another edition of Mass Impact, the educational podcast. Now, look, the reason why I started this, I truly believe that education is the way to close the gap, the wealth gap, the digital divide gap, the opportunity gap. Look, the American dream gap. Can I be honest? Everybody's not experiencing the American dream in the way it's supposed to be experienced. So the reason why we started the Mass Impact, the educational podcast, is to close that gap. Now look, mass is simple. It means motivate, actionable steps, which means what? We're going to give you strategies every week. So we're not just going to motivate you and inspire you, which is important, but we're going to give you actionable steps. And look, it's a support system, y'all. Thus Mass. It's your boy E.T. Now you know. Let's go.
What's up? What's up? What's up? It's your boy E.T. and fam. I got Sam in the building. She may have some technical difficulties, but she's in the building with us. Vondell, as always, is in the building with us. Katie is here. Hey, I want to say this before I get started. And my prayers are not limited, to Nashville, and the parents and the siblings and the grandparents and, just all of the citizens in Nashville. My heart goes out to this country right now, and I know a lot of times, maybe for right reasons, people are a little reserved on, what they say and what they don't say, but for me, I want to be very clear, what I'm saying? When you start taking the lives of babies, when schools aren't safe, when people go to college to, go to an institution and teach, and train, they should be safe. They should be safe. And so I know there's a lot of, I've been watching TV and there's always this debate for years now, to have guns, not to have guns. And I'm just going to say, weapons of mass destruction are not, I don't see the necessity of it, and I watched this one. I usually don't watch a lot of times, but I actually watched the building secure and somebody have enough time with that type of weapon to shoot the front door down, and to be able to walk in, and take the lives of innocent people, and it's unacceptable. There's nothing that you could tell me that would justify, this act. And as much as we brag about being, a superpower, and brag about being one of the best nations in the world, if that does not include protecting our babies when they go to school, then we gotta ask ourselves some questions about our gaps. We got to ask ourselves some questions about, why our babies can't go to school and not have to worry about, it's funny, my wife was saying, and our children are adults, but my wife was like, yo, if I had school age children in this generation, she was like, I think I would homeschool. She's like, I wouldn't even feel safe sending them to, school. And it shouldn't be that way. Our schools should be as protected, as our banks, as protected as whatever institutions, the airport, wherever there's a number of security, our schools should be up there. If we protect the Capitol, whatever it is that we protect and think needs to be protected, our schools need to be a top priority, as well. So I do want to pray, again, not just for those in Nashville, those individuals who's lost loved ones in every school. It doesn't, for some of us who have not had that experience, we get to move on with life. But for those who lost their family members, in the school shooting 10 years ago, they still are mourning that loss. 5 years ago, they're still feeling that. It doesn't go away with time for them. And so we just wanted to be sensitive to that, being educators, being all of us in a building at some point, for hours a day, multiple days a week. I can only imagine. I was teaching, back in 98, 99. I would only imagine going there every day and like being petrified, like thinking of teaching and worried if somebody was going to come in. And so I just wanted to stop and, and pray as the leader. I wanted everybody out there to know that we do share in your mourning. We do, share in your loss. The Bible says there's a time and season for everything under the sun. And one of the things is a time to mourn, and refrain from our personal lives to support those, who are going through what they're going through. So I just wanted to pray. And I'm still one of those individuals. If I'm offensive to someone, it's not my attempt, but I believe in God and I believe in the power of God. And I think this is a God time. This is not a human time. You know what I'm saying? Flowers are good, but I think we need to pray for those families. So, Father, we just ask that you would bless those families that have lost loved ones. You bless our nation and those that are in the role of decision making. Bless our leaders, Lord.
Yes, God. Yes,
Something has to be done. Something needs to be done. We do not need to lose another young person or an adult in a school shooting or in school violence, Lord. Protect this nation. We always say, God bless America. And so, Lord, we ask that would be true, that you would bless America, that you bless our leadership, that they might lead. And this is a major challenge, a major concern, a major catastrophe. And so we ask, Lord, that those who can do something about it, we ask that you would help them to step up and do what they're capable of doing. And just bring this nation, Lord, right now, the world is wars, it's hatred and violence and all at an all-time high. And so we ask, Father, that you will replace it with love. You said God is love. Love never fails. So we do pray for a spirit of love over this nation, and that we could, as a people, not focus so much on what our differences are, but may we focus on what unites us. Again, we just thank you and praise you in your son's name. Amen. All right. Let's get to it. But again, like I said, Katie brought it to my attention today. And like I said, my wife and I have been watching it. Anything that happens with schools, I don't know. I'm always locked in, on it. And what a time in America. And for those of you who are watching, I was just thinking of something when I was praying that Dr. Martin Luther King said, and I think it's applicable to what we're talking about this morning, is that our nation is not just what it is because of evil people, but oftentimes good people are afraid and scared to stand up, and I'm just saying to my good people, I don't have any expectations for others, you know what I'm saying? But my people who are good people, I know sometimes we are, we get nervous, we get afraid, we don't, public opinion, but there comes a point when wrong is wrong. And as believers, we have to step up and call a spade, and as my wife say, then start cutting diamonds. You know what I'm saying? Just a couple of times, you got to call a spade, and you got to start cutting diamonds. And I have a special place in my heart. And God has a special place in his heart for children. He talks about it in his word. And children are not in a position to protect themselves. And so it is our responsibility as adults, to do what we can in our power to make sure we take care of our little ones. So, all right, with that being said, let's get into our podcast.
I appreciate you, E. Can I just say, as a mom and educator too, when you said a couple things like we can move on and other people aren't going to, and I think that some of our leaders want us to move on, and so you just said we have a responsibility to do something, and so I just want to encourage you guys, knowing that each of us in our own way are going to do something, and encourage you to do something too. And I'll just share personally for me. We set up monthly giving with Sandy Hook Promise. So you can do that at sandyhookpromise.org, and also got involved in our local Everytown chapter. So there's a Moms Demand Action local chapter in Everytown and a Students Demand Action one too. So that's just for me personally, that those are places that I'm going to start putting more of my attention. And you can check them out at everytown.org too. And if you've got ideas of ways that we can help support this, please share them with us too, because it is our responsibility to make sure that our babies are safe. And so we want to be a part of the solution for sure.
Yeah, good people. I saw something, Vondale in Detroit. There was a elderly woman that was sexually assaulted. And so proud of my city. There is a group of men who are coming together to protect the city, right? And they're not waiting for the police. They're a group of men in numbers, and they've been going to the gas stations where people are being harassed, and they're lining up at the gas stations. They're lining up in different parts of the city throughout the day. They're sacrificing their time and their volunteering. And so I just thought it was amazing. They had something on the other day where they were just saying, hey, we need the community to help us to identify this individual, and this individual needs to be brought to justice. And I just thought about, Huey Newton, Bobby Seals back in the day, the Black Panthers, where, a lot of people, want to talk negative about that, but they were literally feeding kids every day. And they were doing reading and writing programs with the kids. So it wasn't about violence. It was more about, protecting the community, making sure the babies ate, making sure that they were school ready, making sure that it was some system and order in place. And I think we need to get back to that. We've gotten to a place where so many people are focused on 7 figures. And again, I have no challenge. You want to be a 7-figure earner, but we should also be 7-figure dads and 7-figure moms and 7-figure leaders and 7-figure teachers. Like, we can't be one-dimensional where it's just focusing on making money. And, money is, I always say, is a means to an end. That's not what we should be. Like, that shouldn't be your main focus. It's like, how do we serve? And then the money comes from serving. So, let's just step up, man. Everybody. I know Vondell's doing his thing. Katie's doing her thing. I'm doing my thing. But we're challenging you to do your thing. And then we're challenging you, if you don't know what your thing is, to support us, because we're all individually doing our thing. And then collectively, we're doing our thing. And so, I don't want to go deep scholarly on you, but when you look at nature and you look at those animals that do the best, that in terms of survival, in terms of execution, it's those that run in packs. It's not the ones that do it alone. It's those animals that run in packs and they work together. Those are the ones that have the most success. As long as this environmental, as long as humans don't start messing with their environment, they usually do well. So I just want to tell you that there's power in numbers. And if you are afraid, get with a group of people that aren't afraid. And but find a way while you're here on this earth to make a difference. All right, Katie, let's get to it.
Let's do it.
We've got something special as we think about educators, as we think about students who are getting educated. We're always trying to come up with solutions and bring people in who can help us. So, Katie, what's the topic and who do we have?
Definitely. Talk about prevention. Education is the way to go, right? That's why we're all here. This is how we're going to make the biggest difference in the world. It's education. That's why we love you, educators. So, yes, and we like to bring lots of different topics to the table. We're going to do an interesting topic today. We're going to talk about gap year and how do we help engage students who maybe have different or alternate plans after high school. And we have a special guest. So, Vondell, he's your guest. I'm going to let you introduce him for us as I bring him in.
Hey. Listen, I'm so excited about Walter Mendenhall the fourth. This guy is an author. He's a speaker, and he's my Chicago brother. He's from the west side of Chicago. He has a very powerful story and testimony. His journey didn't just start and end in the classroom, but he was able to fulfill his dream of playing in the NFL. And his brother also played in the NFL. But the powerful thing about Walter, he didn't go out and move out somewhere in the hills and never came back to the city. He decided to come back to Chicago and grind through the Male Mogul Initiative. And this brother is doing some phenomenal work in the city. He's been to the Champs events. We've been to his events. As a matter of fact, Walter, he had a big book release on a Champs Saturday. And we brought all the brothers.
Congratulations.
There. Yeah. And our good brother and friend, ETA Jamal King, the 9 to 5 millionaire, he was in the audience and he said, Singleton, I want to buy out all his books. And he bought out all my brother's books and gave them to every Champs member, man, and it touched my heart.
I love that.
And so what Walter is doing is phenomenal. I'll let him kind of tell his story and what he's doing in Chicago to really reach the underserved and underprivileged brothers who are transitioning from high school and they don't have a clue on what they want to do. So, man, welcome. Give it up for Walter Mendenhall, everybody.
Welcome, Walter.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here. Pleasure to be here. It's always an honor, man. Vondell asked me to do something, man. I'd make it anything I can do, man, to make it. I try to do it, man. I love this guy. ET, man, been watching you since You Want to Be Successful as Bad as You Want to Breathe. I'm talking 2012.
Oh, right. That's a long time. You've been watching me for a long time.
Yeah. So I have my students watch you, man. So they're even, excited for this opportunity, man. So pleasure to meet you, Samantha and Katie. I'm ready to get started.
Super glad to have you here. So I know he gave us a good introduction here, but you tell us a little bit about your education background and just like your passion for this topic today, for sure.
Yeah, most definitely. So I would love to just start kind of how the Male Mogul started. So I was actually a little bit of background about myself. Originally from the South Side of Chicago. So my dad from the West Side. I'm from the South Side.
South Side?
South Side.
Like I said, pretty good athlete. Was able to win a scholarship to the University of Illinois to play football. Played professionally for a couple years. But when football was done with me, I wasn't done with football. Football was done with me. Really didn't know what I wanted to do. So I went in. Actually, my old football coach asked me to coach the high school team. And during that time, I realized I had a gift for reaching young men, especially hard to reach young men. So this actually turned into a paraprofessional or teacher's assistant position in the special education department. Got my credentials and actually began teaching in the city of Chicago on the West Side. There was having good impact. I loved the classroom, but I wasn't having the impact that I wanted in the lives of these young people, because a lot of times I'm teaching them world history, but they got a whole bunch of other stuff when they enter in that classroom that, you need to, address. So took a year off, really did some adjunct work. So I actually taught sociology at South Suburban College and leadership development at Northeastern, and eventually went into nonprofit, which I was a teen program director at a community organization called Circle Urban Ministries. And this is where the Male Mogul was birthed. So I remember going into a high school for a career day on the West Side of Chicago, being a great young man, honor roll student, star basketball player, very well respected in his school, but he sold drugs to get the things that he wanted. And after that conversation, I thought to myself, how many young men in this city have the gifts, skills, and talents to be successful legal entrepreneurs, but don't have the opportunity or exposure? So the Male Mogul really started with 5 kids actually at Pastor Hannah's church. And it's been able to blossom to, in 2017, and been blossomed to serve over 1,200 young people. We've been able to produce 200 plus jobs for young people. We recently won the 2022 Chicago Innovation Award and Wintrust Bank Neighborhood Award. And, we're just actually really just getting started. So that is kind of just the overall background. And the Male Mogul seeks to positively transform the way young men live and lead in their communities through leadership, entrepreneurship, and workforce development.
Wow.
Yeah, that's powerful. Wow. Yeah. Wow. 1,200. 1,200. That's big. What would you say? Because you talked about the population that you work with. So we're talking about, primarily borderline students.
Yeah. I call them on the margins. They can go either way.
Yeah. And so what would you say to those of us who are, literally working with them on a regular basis? Like, what are some of the traits that you've seen or characteristics that you've seen or practices that you've seen that help them get from being marginal, to, most improved? Yeah, because, during the NBA or NFL, that's my favorite. I'm not really into the most valuable player. Like, we already know when the year starts, we kind of got an idea of who that person's going to be, but in, the backdrop, you don't really know who that most improved, player is going to be. It's like, oh, my man is the 6th man of the year. Yeah. What have you seen that has helped those kids to go from marginalized to most improved?
Most definitely. I think it's the inside out approach. You got to start with the inside. So before we start any program, we tackled, it may take 3 weeks, it may take 4 weeks, it may take 8 weeks, what I call the 3 foundational questions of manhood. Who are you? Why do you matter? what's your purpose?
Mm.
You know, sometimes it take 3 weeks. Sometimes it'll take, 8 weeks. Sometimes that's all we'll talk about for the whole session. I think a lot of times, if you don't know who you are, you don't know why you matter. And if you don't know why you matter, you feel like you don't have a purpose. And when you don't have a purpose, you live in a way in which, you don't value your life. Or you don't feel like you have significance, or you don't feel like you are capable of, achieving success. So I think for us, it's really tackling these questions, and then from there, helping them to discover, their gifts, their talents, their skills, their passions, and then a problem that they may want to solve. And I think the unique thing is that it's like, okay, what's the problem you want to solve, and how can you monetize it? So I think from there, then they start to see the connection between education, why education is important, why, having knowledge and continuing to be a lifelong learner. And sometimes you have to do things that you don't want to do to get to where you want to go.
No question.
So it starts to connect once these, foundational things, once that foundation is built.
Yeah.
I think for those of you who are listening, I think it's important for us to, when you talk professional development, a lot of times we just think academia. Yeah. We just think some course to take, some standards or benchmarks, right? But I think a lot of times, a lot of our teachers need to really study human and human behavior, to understand why a question like you matter. Why that question is so pivotal to math and science and social studies. I was telling CJ, being on a podcast with, CJ, Jamal, and Carl, while we have a phenomenal, time teaching and growing as men, one of the bigger challenges for me is, I have a whole different, for the first time in my life, and I'm grateful, but I have a whole different experience. You're talking about 3 men who all had their fathers in their lives, three men who all had their mothers in their lives. So sometimes, I'll hear them say things and it's like, they're not being insensitive. It's like, bro, you have no clue what is, you have no clue when the man who's supposed to be in your life to tell you who you are, when he's not there. Yeah. So I remember once CJ was like, yo, why would somebody even care what somebody thought? I was like, my whole life was what somebody thought. Why? Exactly. Because the person that was supposed to tell me what he thought about me wasn't there. Yep. So I constantly looked for other people to tell me who I was. You know what I'm saying? I constantly was telling jokes, doing whatever. I wasn't a bad kid, but I was trying to be affirmed because I didn't have that affirmation. Whereas I look at my daughter who's super strong. Well, Jada's not looking for no man to affirm her because her father's already affirmed her. She's not looking for somebody to buy her stuff because I've always been there buying her stuff. So she doesn't have the same challenges that some girls will have who you judging her and going, why would she do that? Why she care so much about what some man think? Well, because the man that was supposed to be there for her wasn't there for her. So you say something that seems or sounds so simple, but as educators, when we don't know why we should ask those 3 questions before we start talking about the Pythagorean theorem, you know what I'm saying? Before we talk about, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, bruh, before we ask that, we really need to get back to the heart of education. And what is it? It is not the dumping of information into people's mind. That's not what education is. Education is teaching an individual why learning the world is important to their personal development. So I thought that was dope. And not only is it dope, I'm about to get off the phone and do a voice memo and send it to my son and send it to my daughter, and not assuming that they know the answer to all 3, and then add the 4th one, which is how are you going to monetize, from this experience? And then when I go back to Rikers Island and some of these other prisons and I talk to these youth, we're going to deal with these 3 questions. Even in jail, we need to deal with the 3 questions because you're in jail because you didn't deal with those questions.
That's right.
Now you're in jail because you never dealt with these questions. So it's not too late to deal with them. We could deal with them now, and you may end up getting out, because prison can't hold you if you are really transformed. So that was powerful. I don't know if you guys have any questions. Of course, I always have a million, but you guys may have a question.
I got a question. Now, Walter, you were able to fulfill a dream that a lot of our boys and young men of color. Mm-hmm. If you ask the majority of our young men, especially in this city of Chicago, what you want to be when you grow up? Oh, I want to go to the NFL. I want to go to the NBA. I want to be a rapper, right? They fall into entertainer or athlete. So what messages are you giving kids? You were able to fulfill that dream. You were one of the few, but you came back, and they don't often see athletes of our stature come back into the city, right? I'm not going to start naming names because I got a list of names that are from Chicago, and we ain't seen them in some years, but they made it big and they made it out. And they're like, I'm from the south side of Chicago. They get in the interview. I'm from the west side of Chicago. They get in the interview. But they not Walter Mendenhall. You the real MVP, so talk to us. Yeah, what are you telling the young people?
I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm not, and I wish I'd said if I had a 10-year career and I made $30 million, that I would still be doing the same thing that I'm doing now. God broke me. Even in college, I was at the University of Illinois, and I wasn't getting the playing time, and just a lot of mental abuse. And I think a lot of times, a lot of athletes don't talk about the mental abuse coaches and, just being a football player, puts on your mental. And I remember laying in my bed, I was going through a very, very, very deep depression because, like E.T. said, football was my affirmation. Football was my idol. Football was my God. You know what I'm saying? And when that wasn't going right, like nothing in my life was going right, because that's what I held. That's the only way I got affirmed. I didn't grow up with my father, so it was through the crowd, it was through the cheers, it was through the identity of a football player. And when that was taken away, or I was still on the team, but I wasn't playing. I just fell into a very deep depression. I remember laying in my bed one night, taking my life. Like, God, I need to know if you're really real, because I don't know if I'm gonna make it in the morning. And I felt the presence of God come in and hold me like he would hold a newborn baby. And I had the most peaceful sleep I ever had in my life. And even though my situation didn't change, my attitude about the situation changed.
That's good.
Yeah, my situation didn't change, but my attitude, I knew I was here for a bigger purpose than just to play football. And I kind of took that with me. I ended up transferring schools, ended up, playing in the league for a little bit. But I always knew that this wasn't the ultimate stop. I knew there was more. I didn't know what it was, but I knew it was more. And that's kind of when I started just taking that faith journey, just taking that step by step by step by step. Even when I was done, I was a teacher. I never thought I would create, this, so I just taking those steps, man. I'm just being diligent with what I feel God is leading me to do.
What's the most fulfilling part of this for you? Working with these kids, what's the most fulfilling part?
To be honest with you, influence. There's guys that, used to sell drugs. There's guys that, was in county. These guys that used to carry guns, and, just being in their lives and speaking life into them and offer them alternative routes. It's like, to be honest with you, it's like discipleship, in which I have a core group of about 4 or 5 guys that I know are my disciples, and whatever I lead them to, they will do. And my DNA is being transferred into them. And what I am seeing now, because they're now going into the classrooms and they're teaching entrepreneurship. These 21, 22-year-olds that I was teaching when going into their school.
Yes, love that.
And now they are, and this is what they wanted to do. And they are monetizing deep. I got 2 guys that was in my gap year program. They said, we actually want to go into schools and teach entrepreneurship to young people. And they got their certifications, and within 1 month, they made $25,000 worth of contracts. And they're going into alternative schools. They're going into, these schools, and they have it, and I'm seeing them and I'm training them, and I'm seeing they have an influence that I don't even have on these kids because they're closer in age and they've been through, and that's the generation. And they have, it's like, hey, if you follow this, you could be like us, and you can do this, you can do that. And I'm just really seeing my DNA transfer into them, which is transferring into the youth, and it's multiplying. This thing is multiplying. And I think that's the greatest joy, to be honest, to see these guys grow.
I love it.
And to do what they want to do really, even with this gap year program. I'm sorry if I'm just rambling, man.
No, this is good stuff.
I realize this generation is more kingdom minded than my generation 4, because we were just about jobs. Like, oh, you got to get a job. Even when I started this gap year program, I sent them to all these different jobs. I'm like, why you guys don't want these jobs? They really want to pursue purpose. They really want work. Like, and I think there's a difference between job and work. A job is something that you do just to get paid. Your work is what you're passionate about. And I realized it's like, okay, how can I help these guys identify their work and help them monetize it, and not just try to give them jobs? And that was an epiphany for me. I didn't get that till after the first semester we started this, because we just started this gap year program in September. But by the time, January came around, I'm like, these guys have all these job opportunities, but they don't want it. And they'll rather take the risk of, I don't care if I get paid this much every 2 weeks. I want to chase significance. I want to chase purpose. I want to grow.
That's good.
And I'm like, okay, I got to be the guy to like, okay, this is what you want to do. This is the harder path, but I'm here with you. But I've seen the fruit of, them pursuing their work and their passions, and the, even from a financial standpoint.
Well, that is so powerful. And I'm like, I got to jump in and ask one question. And I love the example you just shared earlier. You said that you really allow the youth to come up with, they're like, these are the problems that I want to solve. I think a lot of times as adults, we might be like, we know all the problems to solve, right? And we're not co-creating, we're not uplifting, like, what are the problems that youth are experiencing? So I just absolutely love that part. I'm curious if you can share kind of any of those problems that are coming up right now or in the past that the youth have been like, this is what I want to solve for.
Yeah, man, I have multiple examples. I'll use one example. It's probably about 2018, 19. I had a group of young men from the west side of Chicago, sophomores in high school. And they wanted to change the narrative of how young Black men were perceived on the west side of Chicago, particularly in the Austin neighborhood. And they came up with the brand called Hero in the Hood. So basically what they would do was they would print T-shirts, and we would go out on the street 20 deep. Madison, I'm talking Washington, I'm talking Central, up and down, picking up garbage, being courteous, going into schools, reading and teaching. And we would just put it on social media. Then we had a store, online store, and, they would just sell their T-shirts. It was just one T-shirt. And in 3 months, they made $5,000. And all they were doing was being a positive influence in their neighborhood. If you walking around 20, 30 deep, everybody looking at you crazy, like, oh, what are these people doing? But we're sitting here doing things. We were actually, uplifting positivity. People will come up to us like, I just love what you guys are doing. And it just made a major impact, and we were able to monetize that. So I think that's just one example of a problem that was looking to be solved, and how they were able to monetize that.
And who came up with? So here's the problem that they wanted to solve. Well, who did the bulk of the, strategy around? All right, we're gonna do T-shirts. Are we gonna clean up? We're gonna go into the schools. Like, how was that strategy part?
Yeah, I think it was a collaborative effort, but there's always leaders, within the pack, and it's kind of coaching those leaders to coach the rest of the guys. So we have a guy that's still with me to this day. That was in that class that works for me now, named Jarvis Winston. And he was kind of the leader of that. And he was able to, galvanize the guys, get the guys, create the design, and was able to, kind of lead that effort.
Yeah. Good.
And Jarvis right now, he finished his associates. So he's going to be teaching actually at an alternative school on the west side called Buzzman. So he's going to be teaching as a
Buzzman.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, we got to connect. Katie, any last question?
Oh, my cheeks hurt from smiling over here just listening to your stories. I mean, truly, I just, like you said a couple things there. One, you said that like this generation, this next generation cares about purpose more than just work, and then your examples. And I just think like, I wish these stories were everywhere. Like people need to hear these positive things about these kids. Like it's not just, I mean, we love you educators, right? We love hearing the work you're doing, Walter, but I just loved hearing you highlight your kids and like how amazing.
I got story for days, man. I could tell you. You could be here all day.
Let's get those stories. Yeah, let's get those stories documented and get them out. We'll talk about how we can,
love that.
How we can do that, but we need to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Walter, I just affirmations real quick. Like, I just love the fact that this is a gap year program and you're giving and providing experiences, right? Like we talk about that a lot. And, that gap year is so important because it's like, if I haven't had these significant key experiences that'll help me point me in the direction that I want to pursue my life in, my career in, or whatnot, then, we have a challenge there, which obviously you're solving for. And so I think that a lot of times it's so much about the experiences and the exposure. So just kudos to you. And they're really driving that. So I'm just so grateful for all the work that you're doing and can see already how impactful it is.
Yeah. As we conclude, I want to go back to, what I would consider non-traditional, but very needed professional development. Walter, you said something I think teachers need to hear. Mm-hmm. If you are working with a group of students who are significant driven, but you are a person who is philosophically a security person, all right? Your thought process is security, and again, we're not suggesting anything's wrong with that. But if your philosophy is security and you're teaching somebody who's significant, it's going to be a disconnect.
It's going to be a disconnect.
It's going to be a disconnect.
I think a lot of those young men on the margins, I think that's where the disconnect is in academia and in school.
Really?
Because they just like, how's this going to apply to my life? How I'm, dodging bullets. How can this, so 100%, like, what can I do?
And again, we got to learn. We've got to go to people like yourself and we've got to grow. And I think one of the challenges that I always have, when people say, man, bro, you put a video out in 2006, you still around in 2023, like, bro, that's incredible. No, I'm a real educator, meaning I'm a learner first. I think a lot of educators, like, you stop learning once you got your degree. Like you just stop. Like the intensity for your 4-year, your master, your PhD or certificate, whatever it was you did, you were super intense. You've not experienced that type of intensity in years. Yeah. And so you're actually giving me leftovers. That's what you're doing. You may not intentionally mean to do it, but you're giving me leftovers. I need my educator to be as fresh as me. And so just to simplify it, Walt, I was with a gentleman who's in the, let's just say, he's in the tech space. And so he was like, I want to, combine with us, see the great work you're doing. And I believe in 18 months, 2 years tops, I can help you, probably secure about $50 million to do, what you're doing. So, we talked about it, Walt, great stuff. We end up splitting up though, Walt, because when we got to the rubber met the road, he wants a prenup. And I'm like, bro, I don't do prenups, bro. Like that, I don't do prenups, bro. Like me and you on a two different, I get what you're saying in terms of but we're on two different wavelengths. Like I don't do prenups. Me and CJ ain't got no contract that's binding us. I said, I'm covenant. I keep my word, bro. Like I keep my word. Wow. Like I'm going to put others before I put myself. Like I'm a real Christian. I don't just talk that talk But then when it's time to make money, then I'm like, oh, nope, I don't believe that when it's time to make money. I only believe that on church day. That's not like I'm for real, you know? And so I told my man, like, you fire, you phenomenal. I don't want to go into a prenup. Philosophically, you already coming into it fear-based. I'm coming into it faith-based. I'm on faith. You on fear. Those two are not going to ever align. We doomed for divorce. We doomed for it. There's no question. We on two different vibes. You on a low frequency. I'm on a high frequency. And not to disrespect you, but you're on a low frequency. You on a I've been hurt. I don't want to get hurt again. I'm on what can we create together? What can we build together? And when we put all our energy on that, you know, so I just want teachers to know, like, yo, some of y'all you on low vibration. And you think just because you have a degree and because you're teaching, you're on a high vibration, and you're not. And so you're not going to be able to help people when you are fearful. But you're telling people that you're not going to be able to help them when you're fearful. 100%. You're only going to be able to help them with faith. You can't get around it. And so I just want to challenge, you know, my teachers. That's why I started off by saying I am very respectful. God has given me a voice. He's given me a platform. I could do a lot more on my social media page than I'm doing. I'm very respectful. But when we get to a place where we're disrespectful or we're harming people, you got to step up. Now I got to say something.
Yeah.
Because then I'm weak. I got to say something now. Like, you're being disrespectful. You feel me? So a lot of you are scared. Oh, they're going to take my check. They're going to do this. They're going to do that. Listen to me. Either God is providing for you or he's not. You know what I'm saying? It is what it is. Either God is taking care of you or he's not taking care of you. If man's taking care of you, you should be afraid. If God's taking care of you, so you got to step up to the plate. And so I'm just saying to all of my educators, we got a couple months left. Step up to the plate. You know, whatever. We wouldn't be educators if we couldn't help kids come up with solutions for their problems, or we couldn't come up, or we're useless. We're just getting a paycheck, and that's not, you know, what we're here for. And I just want to encourage y'all. If you're scared, here's how I help you. You're gonna die anyway. Like I don't care. Like, you're gonna die anyway. I don't care how much you run or hide. It's not gonna put another 10 years on your life, another 20 years. Like, you're just not gonna make it to 200. No matter how you think about it, you're going to die. Die in honor. You got to die anyway. Die with some honor. Let your kids look up to you, or your grandkids look up to you, or your mom and dad look up to you, or your community look up to you. You know, so at the end of the day, I know when I die, my community is going to look up to me. Why? I stood up for my community. I took a stand. Every day we putting out videos that's going to encourage them. I'm going to the prisons. I'm sending kids to school. Like, we're doing this as a group, y'all. So I'm going to die with honor. I got to die anyway. I might as well die the best educator I can be. So stop being an average educator. You're not helping nobody. Stop being good. You're not helping nobody. This is the year of greatness. It's 23, y'all. This 23
years.
This is the year 23.
Yeah.
This is it. So this is the year to, you know, the three-peat, you know, the three-peat twice. This is the year to not have no game sevens. Like, this is the year as an educator that whatever you're capable of doing, you know, be the best. Walk on behalf of Mass Impact. Do me a favor. You know, we believe as educators, repetition deepens the impression. We believe in repetition, doing it over and over and over again. Give us those three questions for our listeners again, so they can take those to their people.
Yeah, 3 foundational questions of manhood for the Male Mogul Initiative is: who are you? Why do you matter? And what's your purpose?
All right, you heard it from here, Mass Impact. If your blood didn't boil, your cheeks didn't, you know, get irritated, your smile didn't grow, you didn't get a practical tip or a solution, I don't know what to say to you. As always, team, thank you so much. Walk offline. We're gonna talk. Yes. My son and I are doing some things this summer for kids through basketball. Look, y'all. I'm like you, bro. I'm a football player to my core, but I just started an AAU team here in Lansing. Okay. So if basketball is what they want, we started it. I said, look, I've spoken for Jordan in the Jordan Classic. I've done work for LeBron stuff. I've done Under Armour stuff. I'm like, you know what? I'm about to do I've done McDonald All-American. I'm about to do a marginal basketball tournament. Like, we're about to make it just as big as the McDonald Classic. I'm like, use your influence. So we're about to get one for,
let's go.
Like the top 24 that you see that everybody want to be at. Well, then there's another top, 48. There's another group that they didn't, but there's another group. And so we're going to start doing stuff for them because they matter, and so we're going to start doing something for that group. So be a part of the solution, not a part of the problem. And if you don't have a solution for the problem, be quiet. Don't further spread the problem. If you don't have a solution for the problem, just be quiet. You know what I'm saying? Keep it to yourself. But if you see a problem, you have a solution for it, go for it. All right, we're going to go to Coach B to summarize this for us. Again, Walt, thank you. Team, thank you.
Thank you.
And let's make mass impact this week, y'all. All right. Thank you.
Love it.
Welcome back, everybody, to the principal's office right here on another episode of Mass Impact, the education podcast. And today's podcast is really interesting to me personally because we're talking about taking a gap year after high school. Now, I didn't technically have a gap year, technically speaking, where I had a year off of school between high school and college, but I was homeschooled all throughout my secondary career, really. I went from second grade all the way through high school graduation as a homeschooler. And because I was ahead, because I was working at my own pace on a lot of these requirements to graduate high school in my home state of Alabama before taking the SATs and all the other college admissions exams, because I had built up a pretty quick pace at that, I actually finished most of my coursework about a year ahead of time. I was also an athlete. So I was able to spend that last year from 17 years old to 18 years old really going all in on college prep, on athletics. And honestly, both of those things were the reason that I was able to get into one of my dream schools, which was the University of Michigan, because I had a little bit less on my plate from a standard academic standpoint. And I was able to pour all of my effort and energy into college prep, into sports, and all the other things that really mattered to me, which allowed me to have a phenomenal collegiate experience. So this episode is personal for me. I'm big on this topic. I love it. And I love how our guest speaker today was able to help us think outside of the box. I think that's so important in today's environment. We all know that kids these days, they want to know the why behind everything. True story, I was doing commentary for the Big Ten Network just a couple of weeks ago for men's gymnastics, and I got the chance to speak to one of the head coaches who had been coaching at this particular institution for over 40 years. And I said, what is the biggest difference that you've seen between coaching 40 years ago and coaching now? And he said, the kids want to know the why behind everything. They want to stress test your best practices more than ever before. I don't know why they want to do it. I don't know what's changed with the culture of education and coaching, but for whatever reason, that seems to be the standard these days. And what I want to do is challenge you to think outside of the box. Number one, that's the most important thing, because we've got to start looking at alternatives to the standard way that you're quote unquote supposed to do things, because that can open up a lot more opportunities for certain kids. But the other thing that I want to challenge you to do is stress test your beliefs. Put them to the test. Start to think about, well, why would I take a gap year? Why wouldn't I recommend somebody taking a gap year? And play with those ideas, extrapolate them out mentally, and really start to consider the long-term effects of both options and when it would be applicable, when it would not be applicable. Arm yourself with the ammunition necessary to have that conversation in an open-minded and fair way with your students. And hey, maybe some of those kids are thinking about taking a gap year, and you'll be able to redirect them into doing something that might be better for their unique situation. Some of them might be thinking, absolutely not, no gap year. And you'll be able to say, well, maybe for you, it actually is a good idea. Arm yourself with the ammunition you need to have open-minded conversations, because that is really how mass impact is created. Now, I would be completely remiss if I did not at least mention Education with ET. Go to the URL right now, www.educationwithet.com. ET and Katie and the entire Mass Impact team is doing an hour of completely free professional development. It's free. You get a 1-hour PD certificate at the end of it. It's official. It's legit. It's going to count. But I promise you, it's going to be so incredibly impactful. One might even say massively impactful. I'm sorry, it's bad jokes. I shouldn't be doing that. I'm not a dad yet. I shouldn't be giving dad jokes. But Education with ET, April 25th. Be there. It's virtual. It's going to be worth it. I absolutely promise you. So with that being said, we'll see you not only on the next episode of Mass Impact, but also on April 25th, educationwithet.com for that free professional development. Until then, we'll see you next week right here on Mass Impact.